Hi. This is a moderately impromptu live. Moderately because it's something that's been on my mind, and I know it has been on a lot of people's minds lately, and always, honestly. I'm gonna see. Oh, Family Tech. She just joined. Sarah. Sarah, can you request to join the live? There she is. Oh, as she's coming on, Sarah Kimmel runs the website and the Instagram and the YouTube account that she is, Family Tech. Hey, Sarah, can you hear me okay?
Hey, what's up? Hmm?
Cool. So, will you like quickly introduce yourself and what you do and what you love?
I love technology. That's what
There
I
it
love.
is.
It's so crazy. Yeah, but I am Sarah. I run the account Family Tech. I have been doing that for over 12 years, and I've been in IT for over 20 years. So that's my background. I come from IT. I've been doing it for a really long time. So I love technology. I love all the things that it can help you do and all the ways that you can customize it and everything like that. And so it's my passion for sure.
Yeah, I saw something. I was probably should have sent it to you. I saw it today. It was it was the dumbest meme, and it said, "Sometimes I like to just drink my coffee when the IT is helping me and say I've downloaded Java." Ah, pretty dumb. It's pretty dumb.
Yeah,
Kind of cute, kind
yeah,
of dumb. And they said, and he hates it. That's what it said. But
yeah.
I
He
love,
hates it.
and the IT hates it. But I also just love, there's not nearly enough representation of women as the IT, right?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah. Like, I mean, my entire career, I've just been working with guys. Like,
Yeah.
my whole entire career. Everybody else that I work with is all guys. But I mean, that's kind of even in high school, I was one of the guys. I've been, kind of a tomboy. I always hung out with the guys. It's just kind of my jam. But
Well, we'll talk about your article in just a second, but I was reading it and it said that you sit with all the football players. And I was like, is
yeah,
this Sarah's? Like, I just had to go back and forth. I'm like, the football players? I mean, why not? Why not?
I
Okay.
mean, I
Well,
like it wasn't romantic or anything.
yeah.
Like those were just my friends. Like it was me and like a whole table full of football players.
And
Yeah,
it's probably because you're so tall and big. Yeah. You're like five
exactly.
two.
On a good day with high heels, I'm probably
Okay.
5'2".
Okay. I was, didn't want to say, my daughter's 5'2", and so she says she's 5'3". So I just wasn't sure.
Exactly. Like, so I'm 5'1" and I say I'm 5'2". So like my driver's license says 5'2", but
Okay,
I'm
okay.
probably closer to 5'1". It's like
So
five
what?
one and like a centimeter. And so like I take that. I just like I round up.
So it makes sense. The football players. That's all I'm saying. They're probably like, oh,
Yeah.
it's you're like us, just huge.
Right.
Okay. So the reason why Sarah and I are on today, a couple things. One is, and I don't think I even realized it, it's called Kismet, that today is World Teen Mental Wellness Day. Sarah reminded or told me about that, which I think is awesome. And I think that's something so cool to be talking about the internet and social media and our kids and our teens using these tech, these apps, these programs, these phones and computers and tablets, all the things. And also talking about the same time mental wellness, that they aren't separate, that they can work well together, and being aware of how to help our kids navigate the world they're in and have mental wellness. So the reason why I asked Sarah, so I'll just quickly background, like I've been in marketing for over 20 years, and I knew a lot about the way that companies and brands used the internet, used all kinds of back end ways, but also just, they're not even back end. They're in your face ways, but we don't realize how we are being targeted and talked to, and how the internet finds us. And I talk about it with my kids all the time. And I just thought people understood what hashtags were and cookies were and all those things. And so I felt really inspired years ago to write a program and some guides to have parents talk to their kids about internet use and social media use, and found Sarah, who has been doing this for a really long time, coming from the IT side, and also has things that I am not aware of, like products and items that you can use in your home and your house to keep yourself safe and protected. And we're both advocates for empowering yourself and your kids to use tech well, better, and to use it to give yourself a better life. And it's not all bad and it's not all good. Anything I missed in that, Sarah?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, I'm a very tech positive person, and I want to, like, that's my whole goal, is to help families understand and manage the technology in their home. Because when they understand it, and it's not that hard to understand when you just look at it a little bit in like different lights, and you kind of liken it to things that you do understand, and you can get to that spot where you're like, okay, I feel like I've got a handle on this. And that's what I really try and do, is just help people feel like they've got a handle on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I mean, you probably get this even more than I do, but every month or so, something new comes out. Someone brings up a study or a story or a YouTube video or something. I mean, I saw the other day Momo. Do you remember Momo?
Oh, yeah, that's forever ago.
I know. I saw something. I was like, remember how terrifying that was for people? And it
Yeah.
was just like, Momo's out to get our kids. And everyone, like, most of you are probably like, this kind of sounds familiar. But Sarah and I were like talking people off the ledge with Momo for weeks and weeks. And it felt like we would never stop talking about Momo. And
Yeah.
I feel like I've said it so many times, I'm going to get flagged for something. I want to. But it's like there's every month there's something, and that we as parents are so, what would you say, we're so invested in the health and wellness of our children, their physical, mental, spiritual, emotional health, that we tend to react when we hear something that I call it sexy or salacious, but sometimes it comes out as scary, like Momo, or fear-based or terrifying. And so we react and respond. And, this just happens all the time. So when this happens for you, and it's so funny because Sarah just posted something today about it as well, which is just, it all works together. But what is the first thing that you would suggest to parents when they see something or read about something or talk to a friend and they hear something super terrifying or worrisome about their kids' health when it comes to tech? What would you like? What's step one? Do you have kind of a guideline there or a first thought?
Yeah, and this actually, like you said, it's cyclical. Every month it's something different. A couple months ago it was the Wall Street Journal article. So there was all of this stuff from like the Facebook whistleblower, and Instagram is damaging to, teens social or teens mental health. There was a whole big article on Wall Street Journal about it. And, so everybody's all up in arms in that, and then everybody's all up in arms in this one. So it's very cyclical. And I think the first step would be to just like take a breath. I talk about this even when it relates to scams. You get an email and it's a phishing email, and it gets your heart racing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to like fix this right away. But it's a scam, and that's what is like, they want you to react like that, because that reaction is what's gonna like help make it continue. It's gonna perpetuate this scam because of that reaction. So the first thing, just like, take a little breath and then do some research. As you were talking about, I've always kind of likened it to if your child is diagnosed with some sort of disease, you
Right.
are going to research the heck
Mhm.
out of that disease so that you can keep them safe, so that you can help them navigate this disease as best as possible. But they don't do that for technology.
Yeah.
They just get this like salacious article. Oh my gosh, Instagram is damaging to teens' mental health. I better delete everything. And then, if you just look into it, okay, what is this article actually saying? What is
Mhm.
the research that they've done? Because the headline is what's getting you. And if you read into the article, so that Wall Street Journal article, I literally broke down the entire article
Mhm.
in a YouTube live, paragraph by paragraph. Okay, well, this is where this is flawed, and this is where like it is valid, because there are valid things out there. I'm not saying social media is the best thing ever,
Right.
you
Right.
know
Right.
but you just gotta do your research and like read the article. Don't just read the title.
And I remember when you shared that the first time I read it, at least, about if your kid were really sick, you wouldn't just go and do the first thing and be super extreme. You would say, okay, we have got to get empowered. We've got to find out all the avenues, all the options, and even get like a second or third opinion. You're not just gonna be like, okay, well, I guess, this is what it is. And if we were really sincere with ourselves, and if we were really worried about our kids' mental well being, we would do the work. But the work is work. It's called work for a reason, right? It's
Yeah.
not easy to go and like research and go read things. And honestly, what is harder than having conversations with our teens?
Right.
I mean, I dearly love all of my children, like everyone, right? And some of my like best people in the world that I know, and yet to sit down and have the hard conversations is not my favorite thing. And I tell them that,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be having this conversation. Like, this isn't fun for me. I want to go be
Yeah.
eating ice cream with you and, playing a fun game. Like, I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing, like you're saying. It's like you would do so much work, and just going, oh, then this is wrong, then we're taking it all away, is actually not helping someone heal. It's not
Right.
finding the solution. So I loved when you shared that, because it's like, yep, that makes sense. That's exactly what we have to do, is work and dig and talk and say, what are your symptoms and how are you feeling right now? Oh, it's work. It's hard.
Right.
I'm like tired thinking about it. And yet
Yeah.
it's like, that's why it ends up being worth it.
Yeah. Before those conversations, I'm always like, oh, I don't want to adult today. Can I not adult today? That's
Yeah. Can't we just play games? Like, wouldn't it just be
yeah.
better if we play games together? But and it gets better, right? It gets easier.
Yeah.
And the more the conversation happens and the more your kids are understanding of what's going on and what you're talking about, it's just easier to bring up. It's like the sex talk, right? It's like if you
Yeah.
wait and look at this big huge deal, then it's a big huge deal and then you never want to bring it up again. But if it's like
Right.
constantly little drips, okay, maybe I'm going to stop with the sex talk. That just felt wrong. That wasn't a good connection. But you know what I'm saying? Like the big,
No,
the
but
big,
it's exactly like that, because you are constantly having
yeah,
these hard conversations, but if you have them frequently enough, they're
yeah,
not hard anymore.
right.
Like my kids will bring stuff to me instead,
Yes.
like, I know you're going to see this, so I'm just going to let you know that this happened, because they know I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching, they know I'm monitoring, and I'm not like constantly on devices. I do give them some privacy. Like that's why I really like Bark. That's
All the time.
the
Mm-hmm.
program that I use, because it's just going to flag me for concerning content.
Right.
So if my child is texting with somebody or messaging somebody on a social media app, I'm going to get flagged and say, hey, this is medically concerning content, or this is, self-harm content. And then it'll give me a little snippet. I don't want to read every conversation that you've ever had. Like that would take a full-time job to monitor that.
Yeah, so that's a good tip, and one that I want to underline is it is a tech or an app or a program like Bark. And Bark is the one that Sarah uses and suggests, and I have worked with them as well. And what is great about Bark is that, like she said, if there are certain words, they flag them and alert you. So if it could be words that you don't even know about yet, that they
Yeah.
are on top of, they know the words before the Wall Street Journal or any news article
Right.
tells you that, or police officer, like they know the words before everyone else. And so if it's
Yeah.
an acronym or a self-harm word or a dangerous word or a sexual word or a predatorial word, those type of things, they alert you so that as a parent, you can say, oh, okay, this is happening now. This is what I do. So then you're prepared for it. So I love that. Wanted to underline. Can you think of any others like Bark that you have considered or shared or think could be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, so one thing that is helpful, like I always talk about layers. So
Uh-huh.
there's layers of parental controls. And, some people might think it's kind of over the top or whatever, but what it really is doing is there's different types of technology, and one thing's not going to be able to span everything.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have it at these different layers so that you can, protect your family
Right.
appropriately. So Bark is on device. So there's, four layer, well, five I always talk about. So on in app is the first one.
Okay.
So in app would be setting up parental controls inside TikTok. So,
Right.
a lot of people don't even know that there's parental controls available inside of TikTok. And it's actually one of the safest platforms because of that. People are like, oh, I would never allow TikTok, but I
I know.
love Instagram.
Right. No, you're no. I know.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's kind of the same thing,
Yeah.
but thanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so TikTok has in-app parental controls that you can set so that they can't get out of their account unless you put in, your code. They can't direct message anybody unless they like you specifically say that they can. So there's all these controls that you can set inside the app. So whatever apps your kids use the most, look
Right.
up what the parental controls are for that individual app. And so that's in app. The second layer would be on device. And that would be something like Bark. For iOS, you set up screen time. For Android, you set up Google Family Link. Those are the like built-in controls that are free for both platforms.
Right.
So screen time's great. Google Family Link is great. So those are other on-device apps that you can put on
Love that.
to protect. So then the third layer would be on network. So on my Wi-Fi, I use a router called Griffin. So it's
Griffin. Okay.
Gryphon. And
Oh, okay.
what the Griffin, what?
Gryphon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not
Very.
like Griffin.
I know. I was like, they have one? Okay, go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah, no. Griffin, like Gryphon. Um, And so this is a Wi-Fi router that has parental controls and filters built into it. And so you can create different profiles for each of your kids or profiles for your smart TVs or your gaming systems. Or like, if your kid has a smart TV in their room, you can assign it to their profile. And with this, you can set bedtimes so that the internet shuts off completely to the whole house, or you can have it shut off to individual users at specific times. You can set homework times where it's only allowing access to specific educational
Okay.
websites
Mm-hmm.
during that time, so they're not like
Right.
browsing on some other things.
YouTube.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's got a content filter, so it's
Yeah.
going to block out any pornography or things like that. So, it's a
Awesome.
really good device that I love to use. In full disclosure, I am the head of tech support
Partner.
for the company.
Oh, look at that. How convenient. No, but you work there because you believe in it too. So,
It's true. Like I was a
yeah.
customer long before I was an employee. So
Yeah.
like I've had a Griffin in my house since 2018, and I've only been an employee for the last like 7 months. So
Okay. Cool.
I believed in it before I became I became an employee because I believed in it.
Uh,
And so if you have problems with your Griffin, definitely reach out.
yeah, for sure. Cool. And then what's the fourth?
And then The fourth layer is on data. So like
Okay.
on Verizon, because you have these protections on your Wi-Fi and then they hop off the Wi-Fi and get on their data plan and all your
Hmm.
protections are gone.
Yeah,
So setting up something, so I use Verizon Family Safety, and that helps that. But like most of the companies have their own type of like family safety. So where you can shut off their data at night or, limit time spent on various apps like on the data plan.
that's
So
awesome.
that's the
And did you
fourth
say there's
layer.
a fifth one, or is that like,
The fifth layer is
yeah?
conversations.
Okay, I was like, is that? Got it.
Yeah. So the fifth layer is conversations, just having, like we were talking about, these frequent conversations with your kids about predators, about, the things that are out there that could trip them up. And even like when I get notified something on Bark, I'm like, oh, you know what? That wasn't very nice to say to your friend.
Mhm.
Maybe you like should apologize for that or something like that. It doesn't have to just be about predators. It can be about
Right.
their relationships. Like, mm, probably not a good idea to like do that. So you can have
Yeah.
these conversations. They know you're kind of checking in on them. They know that
Mhm.
um they're not going to get away with anything or whatever. And then they'll just start coming to you for stuff like, hey, mom, I saw something inappropriate. Just want to let you know I turned it off or whatever. Um, and, my kids come to me and tell me these
Yep.
things all the time. And they'll even be like, hey, I saw something inappropriate. And then I kept looking, you know?
Right.
And like, because I'm like, okay, let's
Yeah.
figure out where you saw that inappropriate thing. I'll try and block it so it doesn't happen again. Or if it's
Hmm.
like a website that he frequents, I'm like, oh, he's like, I really want to keep the website, but um, I'll avoid it next time. And so we just, have these conversations and then they're not so hard when you're like
They're not.
always talking about it.
Yeah. And I always say to my kids, me seeing it is the least of your worries. Like, I'm actually like the one that will forgive you the fastest. Like, this can be much more troublesome for so many other people and things. Like, I'm the least one. So if you're afraid of me seeing it, that's the least
Yeah,
of your worries. Like,
right.
and then they go, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. And when you
it's,
react like that, when you're like,
mhm,
oh, okay, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's what I usually always say. I'm like, I'm sorry that happened to you.
yep.
Let's figure out a way we can prevent it or, help you to like not have that experience again. But then they know that that's a safe conversation, and they're not
Totally.
going to be, what was that?
I just lost you. They're not going to be
Okay.
what?
Yeah. Like I lost you too. So I'm like, then they know that that's a safe conversation that they can have with you, as you keep doing that.
I agree. And I want to kind of come back to the conversation, but before that, let everyone know that you have all of these layers and the different types of devices you can use. You share this not only on your website, but on your YouTube channel, right? And
Oh yeah, for
is
sure.
that just like family tech on YouTube if you search family tech?
Yeah, I'll pop right up.
Okay.
I'm at Family Tech on all social media platforms. So Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I've got Family
I
Tech on all of them.
mean, almost like you work in IT and knew how to grab it all.
Branding, baby, branding.
I love it. I love it. So definitely if you had any questions or wanted to like, okay, but how do I get that number 3, that on network, or like I need more questions about on data, like go check out not only Sarah's website, but her YouTube channel. I want to talk a little bit more about that conversation part, because this is the thing that I think as parents, our fear, our concern, we immediately blow it on conversation. So yeah, we can go and, add all these in apps on device, on network. Like, we can go do all this later. It takes time. It takes some research. It takes some work. But because we are reactionary creatures, when we're afraid, we have that fight or flight, right? So
Right.
typically we either fight, we react, and we say things that we probably will regret later, or we flee, we flight.
Yeah.
And that's when we do things like, then fine, no tech, no social media,
Slogan.
no internet.
Yeah.
Like, it's just We just pull everything out. So I kind of want to talk about both of those, both the fighting and the flighting. So first,
Yeah.
let's talk about flighting just for fun, because I think it's the easiest one to tackle too.
Yeah.
And why, I think we both agree, but I want to hear your take on it. Why fleeing, why taking all social media, internet, phones, tech away from our kids is a more dangerous response than
Yeah.
working with
Well, I mean, first, it's the easy way to go, for sure. You know,
initially.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, someone's telling me this is bad. I didn't like it anyway. It's gone. Like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to have to work, like we were talking about. I don't want to have to manage it. I don't want to do any of the hard work. So it's gone. I'm done. Yay. And that's the easy way out. But unfortunately, our kids live in a digital world, you know,
Yeah.
and they have, like, so I always use this example, and my friend loves it. So her son was like 13, 14, and he didn't have a phone yet. And she thought he was just the homebodiest homebody ever, like, just loved being at home, didn't really have friends, didn't want to hang out with anybody. And then she got him a phone. And suddenly he's going out with friends, he's going to this, he's going to this house, he's doing this and that. And she realized that no teenage boy wanted to text his friend's mom to see if he can come over, you know? And that's the world we live in, unfortunately. And
That's
so
the
it's,
world they live in. Like, I
well,
mean,
right.
we live in it, but we can't compare our experience to their experience. It's way more their experience than even ours.
Yeah.
I love that
And
story.
I know it's my favorite.
It's such a good one.
And their relationships are quantified by what's happening on these devices. So,
Yep.
your older teens have Snapchat. These Snapchat streaks are like the most powerful thing your teen is involved in, I promise. Because the higher your streak is with this person, the better my friendship is with this person. Like, I can quantify that I have a really good relationship with this person because my Snapchat streak is 200 long.
Yeah.
And they're so obsessed with this that if you take their phone away, like, and so this gets into kind of the article that I was talking about. If you take their phone away or you're on vacation or something, they will give their password to their friends to keep these Snapchat streaks alive. And you don't want them to get into that habit of giving their password to somebody else. You want to teach them that passwords are very private. Never give your password to anybody else. And so work with them on those kind of things. Okay, I know you're grounded from your phone right now because you did this or whatever, but I will sign into your Snapchat so you can, like, keep your streaks alive on my phone, for 10 minutes every day. And then you can keep that alive and not lose your friendships because you've missed out on these Snapchat streaks. And that way it's not so damaging to the kids when you're really cutting them off from all of their social interactions.
Yeah, I remember explaining it to a parent once, and I said, you remember like those best friend necklaces that were like, this is my best friend. I have this necklace. And imagine if a parent was like, that, I hate it. I don't know why you would wear that. And they tear it off and they throw it away. And you're like, but this is my best friend. And this ruins my relationship. It's like, just because we don't get it, because it's not physically comprehensive to us, it doesn't mean it doesn't have meaning to our child. And so, how do you say, okay, this is when you can use it? I love that idea of being like, okay, you can use it on my phone for 10 minutes or even 5 minutes. Like, you can make it as short or as long as you need, but letting them know you see that it's important and that it can be controlled, in an environment that makes everyone feel safe. Another thing that I've seen a lot, especially as my guides first came out, and there were a lot of people really just raining down on this, no phones for kids, no social media. I would get just dozens and dozens of messages from parents telling me how their child they didn't know had a burner phone or an old iPod that they turned into something, or a tablet, or their friend gave them an old device that then they
Yeah.
used to access Snapchat at the time, or TikTok
Right.
wasn't quite that thing, but Dub Smash, or
Yeah.
Instagram, or any of these. And even there are much worse apps out there. And if you
Yeah.
don't have this conversation with your kid, they are hiding it, and they're getting
Yep.
into more trouble when they are sitting there and not able to tell you, because not only are they going to think they're in trouble for getting on the app, which you told them we're not doing that, then they have to
Right.
tell you that they have a burner or a
Right.
phone or an iPod. And then it's like, but if I tell them, then I'll lose even more privileges. Like, it just, there,
Right.
you lose so much, and so much of parents intending safety and good and positive things. Like, I just want you to get outside more. I'm like, always
Right.
like, it's not an or situation. This is an
Yeah.
and situation. It's not
Yeah.
phone or outside. It's outside and tech in spaces that make sense. Like, it's both. It's and this is the
Yeah.
world we're in. We're in an and world. And so, I know you probably had similar stories. It's just like, if we just take away, if we flee, you
Right.
will probably be shocked if you find out, or if you hear of some of the access your kids have. They will go to their grandparents' house, their friend's house. Do you know how much my kids are able to access on the school computers? Like,
Right.
shocking. You think, oh,
Yeah.
it's super safe. And I always say, like, firewalls are never at the level of the nefarious individuals who want to get past the firewalls. There's like
Right.
10 million more. That's an exaggeration, but there's always
Yeah.
way more people trying to break a firewall than create a firewall, right? Or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, well, they're at school, that's safe. Oh, grandparents are safe. They're everywhere. So
Yeah.
there's actually no fleeing. There's no flight in
Yeah.
in the reality. You might think it is, you might think
Yeah.
you're, but there's no flight. Unless you like are so wealthy and move to an island. And I'm like, honestly, like, I can't think of
Yeah.
like, even people are like, well, I homeschool. It's like, do they ever go to a friend's house,
Right.
or a grandparent's house, or a cousin's house, or ever
Yeah.
anyone else ever?
Right.
Then no.
Yeah, and people do that all the time. They're like, my stuff is so locked down. Nothing will ever get through. And I am an IT manager, and I will say that is impossible.
Yep.
They will find it. They will find, somebody will show it to them on the bus. Somebody, if they're homeschooled, they, go to their neighbor's house. They're
Cousins.
going to see it. They're going to come
Yeah.
across things that you think are inappropriate. And you need to prepare them for that.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's like, there's literally no flight. You might think you've done it, but if anything, you've created a barrier between you and your child to talk about it, because it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I know this is unsafe. This is not something I can talk about. So
Right.
now I'm alone. The child thinks I'm now alone in this journey. And that's never the parent's intention. They don't want their kid
Right.
to feel alone. They feel like, no, I'm saving them. And it's like creating this divide. And I think that's why I really wanted to talk to you about this, because it's like, we need to talk about this out loud, so people say and hear, like, oh, I'm actually not creating safety. I'm creating separation.
Right. Yeah.
Unsafe space.
Absolutely.
Unsafe. Okay, so let's talk about fighting, right? So, or conversation. So, having the conversation with your kids. What is like a tip that you have, like, off the top of your head? I know no prep here. What's a tip you got?
Right.
Ready? Conversation.
Right. Okay. I actually really like when I do see those articles, like when I see the Wall Street Journal article, Out Tech Your Kids is a great podcast. And Kim Gumbinger, who is one of the podcast hosts for that, she did a great article on Cool Mom Tech about that Wall Street Journal article,
Okay.
where you see this article and then you say, "Hey, kid, come here. Like, here's this article that says that Instagram is damaging to teens." Like, and this is what she did. She talked in her article. She said, I sat down and talked to my teen, and this is what my teen had to say about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so you see those articles that are sensationalized, and you're like, oh my goodness, bring your teen in and be like, hey, what do you think about this article? Do
What a
you
thought.
think this is true? Like, and have those conversations in that moment, because they might shock you with like what their thoughts are on that article. And with Liz Gumminger, it was great insight from her teen, you
Yeah.
know,
Things we
and
don't think about. Yeah, that's great.
right, so and I do that too with things about predators too. So,
Mhm.
there's this TikTok star, some stalker came to their house and everything like that. So I say, hey, like this is something that happened. Or you
Mm,
hear about a grooming thing and there's a news article about that. Bring your teen in. Hey, like check this out.
yeah.
Oh, like do you see how they were able to groom them doing this and that? You know,
Mhm.
that's crazy. Like, what do you think about that? Would that ever happen to you? Things like
Yeah.
that. And just have those conversations with like what's really happening in the real world.
That's great. That's great. So instead of just talking about it with a friend or a spouse and saying, what are we going to do? You bring them in and then
Yeah.
they feel both empowered. And I know I'm going to use that word a lot, but also
Yeah.
they feel like you value their opinion on the matter and their
Right.
voice is important because it affects them. And it's not
Right.
just like we're making this decision. And that's one of my tips that I have is making the decision with your family, with your child, because I always say like, I'm not, um, I don't love when people choose what I'm supposed to do. I don't love when people say, hey,
Right.
like I say, if my husband's like, you can only spend $100 this week, I'd be like, who are you? I'll spend whatever
Right.
I want to spend. Like, it's like back off.
Same.
But if we like sat down and talked about it and it's like, okay, here's what our goal is and here's our budget, blah, blah, blah. So what do you think? Like how much should we be spending this week? And I might be like, I think, about 120. And he'll say, what about 80? And then we go, okay, 100. Like, but then
Right.
I'm so much more likely to follow through and feel like it was my decision because it was, than if he just
Right.
says, also, bless his heart, he can't tell me what to do. But that's how our kids feel. Like, and if
Right.
we're trying to help our kids turn into smart adults who can make these decisions, like I have my second child's turning 18 next week. And I'm like, I just said to him before I came on here, I'm like, this is your last week of being a kid. Like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? He's like, I know, I'm terrified. I was like, I know. Now it's all on you.
Right.
Everything you do is all on you. But like, if our goal is to turn them into like adults who make good decisions, we can't just suddenly be like, okay, now you gotta figure this out for yourself. We have to give them tools to know
Right.
how to make these decisions and give themselves guidelines and etc. So I love that, like also bringing them in on the conversation of what's happening. It also helps them feel like their voice matters.
Right. Yeah.
Their
And to
experience.
your point, there's two things that kind of like compare it to. And one of them is finances. I'm not
Mhm.
going to just hand my 18-year-old a credit card and be like, hey, good luck. You
Yeah,
know,
pay it off, I guess.
that's how so many college students get in so much debt because they're not taught these financial things when you have access to like their finances and you're like,
Right.
hey, maybe you should save for something,
Yeah.
and teach them how to budget and things like that. So the same thing with social media. You can't just be like, okay, well, you're 18 now, so I guess you can download social media and you can have a phone. Like, sure, they're going to figure out how to use it, but are they going to use it well? Will they like develop unhealthy relationships with it and things
Yeah.
like that? Because you haven't laid that groundwork. It's like giving them
Right.
the credit card when they turn 18.
I like that analogy. I always use the car analogy. I like credit card too,
Like,
because I mean they're both super dangerous, right? And
yeah.
I like mine is the car analogy, because in the early 1900s, cars were so dangerous, and people wanted them to be banned from the
Oh, yeah.
streets. It was serious, because people were dying and people were getting really hurt, and people didn't know how to drive them correctly, and there were no rules. And so everyone's like,
Yeah.
get rid of these cars, get rid of these cars. And now I'm like, can you imagine if we got rid of the cars? Like, I wouldn't be married to who I'm married to, that's for sure, because I
Yeah.
would never have met him, and like, I don't
Right.
want anyone to take my car away from me. But at the same time, if you tell your kids their whole lives how dangerous cars are, how horrible they are, that they kill people, that they're seriously uh serious machines, like, because they are.
Right.
They're, I mean, I'm teaching my third child how to drive right now, and I want to vomit every day when I drive with them, because I'm like, oh my god, and but that's the same thing. Teaching your kids how to use
Yeah.
tech and social media is like terrifying, because it's
Yeah.
serious, it's big, it's dangerous. And yet once they learn how to do it on their own, you're like, oh, okay, you still got to be careful, you still got to follow the rules, you still have, even if no one's around, you still have to be thoughtful of, like, the
Yeah.
machine that's dangerous, you know?
Right.
And yet if I just gave you the keys when you're 18 and said, I hope you like figure it out,
Right.
no, you wouldn't do that, because you'd be like, but then
Yeah.
they're gonna get hurt. What's that guy? Cobby, the guy that does this all the time. Like, yeah, like, exactly. Like, and see, we wouldn't have that fun joke had it not been for social
Right.
media. But like, it's seriously like, duh, like, you have to be in the driver's seat or the passenger seat while they drive, and go, oh, okay, I'm gonna take it for a while, just for a while,
Right.
just gonna take it, and then I'll teach you some more things. Like, we have to
Yeah.
be there. And I love the money part too, because it's not as scary as like car accidents, but it
Right.
still can have a really long effect,
Yeah.
right? And it can be really burdensome and overwhelming, for sure. I
Yeah.
love it. Any other tips you have for, like, having conversations, or like, how do you approach it when you're just like, I don't know what to say right now? Like, do you have an idea or
Yeah. I
anything?
mean, one book that I really like, I have it, like Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
Oh yeah.
And there's a junior version too. And it's really great because it kind of walks them through exactly, like, I mean, this has nothing to do with social media, but like, it's what part of these conversations that I have, like why you're compelled to keep looking, if you see
Yeah.
pornography or something like that, kind of what is happening in your brain,
Yep.
and why that is, and like, and what you can do to kind of combat that. And so I also like to talk to kids about scams that are out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is a common scam. Did you know, like, on Roblox you could, like, somebody's going to offer you Robux, and you're like, ooh, great, free money. And then, it's a scam. They're getting your account and they're going to steal all your stuff and things like that. So, helping them know what scams are out there, I think
Yeah.
is really helpful. And just kind of anytime they're online, like, oh, hey, what are you doing? What are you looking at? Like, bring me into your world, even though, like, sometimes if my child is building stuff in Minecraft and like showing me extensively everything they've built on Minecraft, I just want to, like, but having that conversation, be like, oh, that's so interesting. That's even like a benign conversation that you're not having about social media, but it's still about technology. And they see that you're invested in what they're interested in on technology.
I like that. Can you put up the book one more time? Someone asked
Oh,
what
yeah,
the
sure. So,
Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. That's the second edition. There might be a third. Who knows? Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
yeah. And so it's a really good one.
Okay, I like that. One of my suggestions is is instead of waiting for when you need to have the hard conversations, I suggest you practice having them. And this is dual benefit. The first benefit is you don't react. You don't do that whole fight of like, oh, I'm so scared, right? And then, I mean, this happened to me when I had one of my kids was really little and saw something, and no fault of their own, no searching, but there it was. And I was filled with shame. And so I reacted, and then they were filled with shame, and it wasn't a good relationship. And that's when I went, oh, I did not handle this well. And so I practice for myself, but I also practice for my kids so that as we do it, they know what to expect. So for example, I would say, hey, so when you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or when you see someone say anything about self-harm or hurting themselves or others, here's what I would do. I would have you come to me and you say, hey mom, I saw something. And I would stop what I'm saying. Or like sometimes we have even a word, like if I'm working and you really need to talk to me, just say, mom, this is important, or I need 1 minute. And I'll say, okay, right? And then, so we practice it so that it's not just like, I forgot that I told you this, say 1 minute. And then, or what, we have our own thing, but I'm not going to share it because it's for us. And so, and so then I would sit down and say, okay. And then I just act it out. And so we act it out, say, okay, what was it? Who was it? What would you like me to help you with? And it's a lot of me asking questions calmly and them just making it up for the first time. But so that when it happens, because it will happen, they kind of know what to expect. So they're like, oh, I know I'm just going to go say it. And then she's probably going to say this. So it's not like she's going to be so mad at me. And then she's going to take my phone away. Because this is what kids do, is like it goes huge in their head, and all the worst case scenario. And especially for things like grooming, which is terrifying for any parent to hear about. And in those cases, it's those type of practices that we do that really empower my kids to know that instead of me just saying, hey, no one can hurt me or you, I'm in charge. Like sometimes we use those big things and it's not really believable, but practicing it and saying, okay, someone told me that, let's say someone told you that they would hurt themselves or you or me if you said anything to me. So, okay, so you come in, you say this. So like, let's just practice. And then we're just role playing, but it kind of calms their brain to go, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. And then when it happens, if it happens, they'll be like, oh, I just know that I'm going to say this. And this is these are the rules. Do you know what I mean? So
I love that.
I didn't even realize when we started it, how powerful it would be for me to feel calm. Because you just want to go, oh, what, where, when, who are you with? What did they have? You know, because we're afraid, but also for my kids to feel like it's not, they come to me so much more often. Like, okay, I saw this. How do I respond to this text? Someone said this, what can I do? It's like, oh, okay, let's go. And I am shocked at how much that has helped. So I love those thoughts too, to add to what you were saying.
Yeah. And even, I even have my kids role play situations with their friends too.
Oh,
you know, so like, hey, you know, you're sitting on the bus, your friend is like, hey, check this out. You know, what do you do? You know, we go into that Speed reference. What do you do? And, you know, we role play those. What?
Speed the movie?
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess I need to see that again. I was like, I don't know. That doesn't even sound like, it sounds
Pop quiz hot shot. Pop quiz hot shot.
Sandra, did Sandra say it? Or
there's a bomb on a bus. What do you do?
Okay. Anyway, carry on. So they do it.
Sorry, I speak in movie quotes all the time. But
me too, but I guess I just haven't seen that recently enough. Carry on. That's what I'm doing right after we get off. Going to watch Speed.
Yeah, Anna's watching Speed tonight. Say hi to Keanu Reeves for me.
Always.
I know, right? But yeah, you know, you just role play those situations. Okay, you're at your friend's house and, you know, this is going on. what are you going to do? How are you going to react? And they might not react the way that they role play, but
Right.
they'll know, like, when I come and tell my mom about that later, like, because we've role played this conversation with my
Hmm.
mom,
Hmm.
then I know how that's going to go too. So, you know, just preparation, I think, is the key to all of it.
Yeah, I like that idea of role playing with their friends because, like you said, even if they don't do it the way that they tried out, at least it gives them some idea of things that they might say. And
Right.
it's just a practice. Everything we do is a practice. It takes us so many times to be able to say the thing, to memorize a script or a quote or whatever, and say the things. I know I don't say it, but like we got to say it over and over and over again until it becomes part of our brain. But even doing it once or twice gives us at least some of the verbiage that if someone just said, hey, when your friend says this, you say this, we don't practice it with our own mouth, it
Right.
doesn't it doesn't feel as comfortable or familiar. So I love that idea. I have never thought of that or done that with my kids, but like practicing what we say to our friends. That's a really
Right.
great idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, anything else? Like, I think we should wrap up just to kind of like have a good starter. Again, Sarah has so much stuff on her YouTube and her website and her Instagram. She has a lot of quick tips and ideas. And I have a guide, a couple guides as well, that is just about conversations and talking to your kids. There are a lot of really great resources out there. We're two, and Sarah does this 99% of the time. The other time she watches movies like Speed. I mean, I'm not going to be, but there are tons of good resources, and it's really important to empower yourself and your kids. So anything else you would like to kind of end with, or final thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, just, the more prepared you are, like you're saying, the practice and everything like that, the more confident you're going to be when you think of technology as this, like, I'm never going to understand it. Technology hates me. I don't know how to deal with it or anything like that. And you keep telling yourself that, then it's going to be true. But if you're like, you know what? If I just look into this a little bit more, do a little more research
Yeah,
here, I can feel comfortable enough that the technology doesn't have to be the bad guy. It's, I always say, it's not, it's same like with a car. The car doesn't get in a car accident. The person driving the car
hmm,
is the one that's getting in the car accident. So it's not technology that is inherently bad or evil or anything
yeah.
like that. It's the people driving the technology. And if you are the one driving the technology, then you can be safe.
I love that. Mine was super similar. My thought for the to finish this was super similar. Is like, um, nothing is black or white. Nothing is all good or all bad. And I had a conversation with a college student last week who said, I just saw The Social Dilemma. I was like, you just saw it? But it's also like, I mean, okay, things keep posting. And she says, I'm
Yeah.
just terrified. I'm terrified of social media now. And I said, sure. I said, here's the thing. Nothing is black and white. Nothing is all good or all bad. We could make a documentary tomorrow about exercise and how many billions of dollars the exercise industry is making, and telling us what we need to do, and how it's killing people, and how it's really creating these horrible relationships with people's bodies, right? Like,
Right.
I could
Yeah,
easily like convince someone that that is a very important documentary. That doesn't
totally.
mean exercise isn't also really good for us in small doses, in doses that not even small, but like if it's taking over our whole
Right.
life, it's not good. If we do it an hour
Right.
a day, it's great. And we work
Right.
better, we're clear, all those things. But nothing is all good or all bad. And just because we see something, and that's usually when I say red flag, is if it is just painting one huge all good or all bad picture. Red flag. Take a minute, like you said at the beginning, do a little more digging, take a breath, do a little research. There's so much gray, And that's actually where the truth is in the gray. And your truth is going to be a little different than my truth. And that's great too, because we're different and our kids are different and our experience is different. And there is still a lot of good and hope and beauty and connection if we just
Absolutely.
if don't believe the black or white. Don't believe it. If you're feeling it,
Yeah.
it's false, and it's
Yeah.
causing you to have fear. And oh, that was what I was going to say at the end. What is the motivation? It's, and you were saying that too, for these clickbait articles, their motivation is money, is clicks, is attention, and their motivation is not your safety, not you to be empowered, not you to have these strong conversations. Their motivation is to get you to react immediately, and those are the black and whites. So the truth is usually in the gray and takes some digging and takes some breathing. So Sarah, thank you. I'm going to save this. Everyone who's asking, yes, of course I'm going to save this. And
Right.
Sarah, I'll
No,
send it
I
to
don't
you
like
too if you
saving
want to
things.
save it. What is saving? Like, where do we save it? In the cloud? Just kidding. We're not going to go there. You are so awesome. I'm so grateful for all that you do and all the studying and research and reviews you do. And you are just so clear-minded. And even when people give you, especially teens, give you a grief in your comments, and you're
All the
still
time.
going.
All the time. Yeah.
They don't like that you're telling parents things. So
They really don't.
that's why you need to follow her too. Thanks for taking the time. And maybe we'll do this again. Maybe soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah. See ya.
All right. Thanks, Anna.